Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good morning to a few. This is John Pachetti here with PT Services Group. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for taking the time to join us. We have a lot of people on the line today, so as it said, everybody is muted at the start here. If you have a question as we go, there is a spot on the webinar there to raise your hand and raise a question. Don't hesitate to do that. Or certainly, if it's a little bit easier, you can shoot me an email during, after, whatever the case may be. The only other reminder I want to give you up front is at the end of the session, the time we spend today, I will send out a link within the next 24 hours that'll give you a playback. So if there's a piece you missed or a part you want a little bit more information on, that'll give you the deck from today and obviously all the conversation that goes on as well. Keep in mind, we're set for 30 minutes. We're really strict as best we can to stay within that 30 minutes. We won't go past that today. In fact, we might be a little bit shorter in the sense of the content that we're going to cover. And that's to think about the top 7 considerations when you evaluate an appointment setting firm and what they're going to do for you and what ultimately you will be able to do with what is provided. So that's where we're going to dive in today. And I want to get right down to it. First thing we recommend you do is begin with the end in mind. So think about the appointment that's going to be set for you and the product that's going to be delivered ultimately. So who's the audience? Things to think about there. Consumers or businesses? If you know much about PT, we're a B2B shop only here, with one exception. We do client calling. So if you have a large book of business or a large participant list, and you would like us to call those individuals for a very specific purpose, we will do that. But understand what the standards are. So if you're calling B2B and you're calling in the qualified plan space, is it plans of $1 million or more, 10 million or more? Health and welfare, is it 50 plus? Really understand the dynamics of who you're going to be talking to and what is going to be delivered to you in terms of the standard or the minimum bar of that individual that you're going to engage with. Secondly, what's the appointment type? There are generally 3 in the industry: face-to-face, virtual, and live transfer. The majority of what we do here at PT is face-to-face with a portion that is virtual. Virtual means GoToMeeting. You can make it a phone appointment as well, but we encourage you on the GoToMeeting side. Anybody in the space today is very comfortable in the face-to-face world. That's where you rely for the majority of the activity that you do. If you dive into the virtual side, and we'll talk about this more in a minute, you have to figure out, can you succeed there? And we'll talk about why it's a struggle. Live transfer, we specifically stay away from it. A lot of companies do it. We don't. It creates a lot of difficulties in coordination and some other dynamics that are difficult once the transfer lands with you to pick up the conversation and go. But understand what's going to be delivered to you in terms of the type of appointment. Is it a prospect or a client appointment? The majority of the calling that goes on and the majority of the appointment setting that goes on is in the prospect world. You're trying to outsource getting you in front of a conversation that you otherwise would not have. There is client calling that we do. Think of it in an 80-20 world. So if you have, and we have many clients in this position where they have thousands of clients, and the top 20%, top 25, top 15, where they draw the line, they don't let anybody touch, understandably so. The back end of the business or the book of business, they'd rather have their staff doing other things, and we'll use a service like PT to help get another 20 appointments on the calendar per month, or a targeted call to their audience with a very specific product or initiative that they want to talk about. So there's lots of ways to build that, but understand, are you getting in front of prospects or clients? Next point, Q versus Q, quantity or quality. There's no right or wrong here, but there's a few realities. So is your expectation that they're going to be high quality, or is your expectation that you're going to get a lot of at-bats? Realize if you're looking for quality, pricing or the budget that is required is going to go along with that. Quantity is obviously, as we all know, is more of a numbers game, even more than quality. So the struggle there is usually budget, or it's an audience that you're calling that you can generate a lot of activity on, but it usually doesn't have a very big ROI. Just understand what you're paying for in those arenas. Secondly, keep on the end in mind. Too many conversations when they start with an appointment setting firm start with, okay, tell me about your process, tell me about how you get in front of people. Flip it. Go to how you paint a picture for a client, where you ask a client or a prospect, hey, tell me where you want to land, and then let me help you get there. Same approach you should take with an appointment setting firm. So the next step is how well are you positioned to succeed with the activity that you're going to get. So if you're going to get in front of business owners, high net worth people, CFOs, whatever the case may be, do you have recent relevant experience transitioning an appointment to business in that space? I had a nice gentleman call me. He called me this afternoon. He was from Austin, Texas, and he's with one of our partnering firms. And he started to try and understand what we do. And as the conversation led on, he had been in the business for about 2 years. He really wasn't ready for what we do here at PT. We're very rarely the first stop on the train for somebody, so to speak. We usually come in further down the line. So if you're more at that front end of the train, find the company that lines up with that. But make sure you have recent relevant experience with the audience you're being put in front of. Back to appointment type for a moment. Virtual appointments have been going on in our space, specifically for PT, for about 6 years now. The dynamic there is the majority of our clients are accustomed to a first stop as face-to-face and how they behave in that arena. What was difficult as clients started to go to the virtual space is getting second appointments. So how do you have a go-to-meeting virtual conversation that's not like what we're doing today? Today, it's more of a I'm talking, you're listening, trying to digest and figure out what you can apply. Maybe ask a question as we go a little bit. If you do that in a virtual meeting with a prospect, it becomes more of a lecture, and it's very difficult to get second appointments. So the big dilemma in virtual meetings is how do you make them engaging for the prospect where they are a participant, not simply a bystander. Live transfer, I mentioned briefly before, it's very difficult to take that live transfer call. One, it's a scheduling piece that can be very difficult. Two, is you're trying to pick up on a conversation that was started by somebody else in the moment. It's a very difficult transition for a lot of people to do. Again, make sure you understand what you're getting and your ability to succeed with it. Cold versus referral or center of influence introduction. The appointments we set here at PT are cold by nature. So we do the lead in, we have the conversation. You've had no interaction with that prospect. They know who you are, go. That's very different from you sit down with Sue and Sue told you that she had a conversation with Bob and Bob said, you're the best and I got to work with you. Help me figure that out. It's a level of skepticism to start with, and it's a question of do you start on step 4 or do you have to start really at square one? Just remember, if you've been in that referral center of influence space for a long time, but you need more activity, if it's coming at you in a cold fashion, the question is, how are you equipping yourself to succeed with that cold environment? What we do here at PTs, we have you work with a sales coach. It's very specific to PT appointments, how to engage with them, and how to be successful with them. But you have to determine, are you going to have the ability to get the desired outcome ultimately from the appointments that you're getting in front of? The other piece that we find is vital before you engage anywhere is your back office. And that comes down to lead management and a nurture process. So here at PT, depending on the program, the parameters, and all those different things, we might get you anywhere from 35 to 45 qualified meetings on an annual basis in that B2B space. Now, with that backdrop, there's a lot of work in there of folks that are going to say to you, I'm not really interested at this time. We, without fail, on an annual basis, have a lot of clients that come to us and say, hey, I closed another PT lead, but I got to tell you, it was from maybe 4 or 5 years ago. We have a very specific group of clients within PT that have a great system to stay in front of people. And what it's not is it's not just putting somebody on an email list and sending them an email once a month. What it does look like is various steps that you take. Do you connect with them on LinkedIn pre or post appointment? Through LinkedIn, do you offer them webinars that they can come to you? And you offer that through emails. Do you offer them a face-to-face on an annual or biannual basis? Do you offer them a seminar that they can come to? Do you also email them? How do you stay in front of them and how do you stay top of mind so when something does happen inside of that company or a triggering event occurs, you're in the conversation? That's really what it's all about. All right. Once you have that back end in mind, once you have the end in mind of what you're going to get and your ability to work with it, then you can get into process. Then it's worthy of your time to really understand how things come together. First, understand the people. We are big believers that what determines a successful program more than anything is the individuals that pick up the phone and dial and their ability to do it the right way. When we talk about a corny stat here at PT where the average caller is 50, 51 years old now, it's a person that's had great life experience. They're not going to shy away from a conversation with a business owner or CFO, but they know their boundaries. They know when to say, hey, that's really a great question for Sue the advisor, versus, yeah, let me better help you understand who we are in that realm. I think it will help you quite a bit. So what kind of Q&A are they going to dive into? What are they going to defer? And we're going to let you know about. But understand who's picking up the phone and dialing for you. If you've ever been in a call center, frequently callers are very young. There's nothing wrong with being young. We've all been there, and we generally are fond of our early years. But do they have the skill sets needed to talk to the audience you're trying to engage with and do it well? Then it comes down to, how does the firm partner with you? One of the things that they should go through with you is who that prospect is and how do you develop the ideal prospect in terms of criteria and characteristics. And then it's about bread and butter. Any type of cold calling appointment setting firm or company and appointments that land on your desk are going to be more in that bread and butter world. Ideal clients are ideal because you don't have enough of them and you'd always want more. So they're just not as prevalent as the bread and butter, the ones that keep the lights on and keep the business going and are very important to you, but you wouldn't necessarily deem your best client. But develop that profile with the firm and make sure there's clarity on who you're looking for and that the campaign's going to get you in front of those people. Secondly, how do you engage with the callers? So here at PT, every PT client has a point person that they work with. That's natural, it's normal, it's appropriate. But you want to make sure you get time with the people that are picking up the phone and calling for you. And don't just do it once. Do it over time. Do it 6 months in, do it 12 months in. Things change, and you want to be able to engage directly with the callers and retell that story so they can hear it right from you. They can have an opportunity to ask pointed questions about more detail based on something you have shared with them. The other thing that you'll find that we do here at PT in those types of settings is we'll do a role play for you. So we'll give you a sense of exactly what a call is going to go like and the typical objections we're going to run into and how we plan to overcome them. Next, you want to know, is the campaign customizable, both in scripting and the qualifying questions that are asked, and can the campaign adapt to change? So as you change and as you decide you're going to do things differently, can the program move with you? And making sure that it's appropriate. Sometimes it won't. And usually that's a quantity-quality question. The quality programs where you are typically paying more, they're more adaptable, they're more personalized, they're more customized. A cookie cutter tends to go with quantity. Just know what you're getting into and know if you want to change your message or you want to change who you talk to, whether or not you can do that and do that easily. 4, how are you presented to the prospect? So you set up a campaign, people are going to call the list that you've all agreed they're going to call. What happens next? How do they introduce themselves? There's 2 typical ways, generically and on behalf of. Generically, what that sounds like is they call into a firm, usually under the guise of a survey or something along those lines, and then they'll try and flip it to an appointment at the end of the call, but they're not introducing themselves as on your behalf. What we do here at PT is on your behalf. So, hi, this is John Pachetta. I'm calling on behalf of Sue Smith here with ABC Financial. How are you today? And we start a conversation. You need to know what that introduction is going to be and how that plays with your brand. Because one of the realities for anybody that's built a business is your brand and your reputation are everything to you. And you want it protected. You want it promoted, but at the same time, you want to protect it. So it's vital that the firm you're working with knows you inside and out so they can present you appropriately and in the right way. And you want to know that they backstop the approach. So do they build a storyboard with you? That's our language. We build a storyboard. What are the differentiators? What's the tone of your company? What's the culture of your company? How do you present? Do you aggressively market? Do you passively and selectively market? How do you want those things to go? And then what's their depth of understanding? We've all been to conferences and you go into the dreaded vendor room and there's 50 tables there and there's a bunch of people standing around giving away some trinkets and trying to strike up a conversation. We've done them. We still do them occasionally, not too often. You go into that room, sometimes you have blinders on. Maybe you're looking for one or two specific people, but oftentimes you're just trying to work your way and weed your way through. Do you have that kind of relationship where it's hit and run, or do you have a true partnering relationship? Hit and run relationships can work for a very specific topic, but just, again, understand what you're getting into. And I mentioned before, how do they backstop your brand? So one of our behaviors here at PT is we will record the engagement. So always have the ability to listen to any interaction that's occurred at any point, any time. Next, are the appointments exclusive? Exclusivity usually comes in two forms in the appointment setting world. Raw territory geography, it can be on counties, zip codes, whatever the case may be, or it can be based on a list. Many moons ago, we've been at it for 26 years now, we started in the territory world and we quickly moved to a list world. So anyone we work with has a list that is exclusive to them. And anytime we build a list, all active records that we're calling are suppressed. So they don't even come up as an option to build a list. It's a choice. And again, it also goes into quantity quality sometimes. The other reality, though, is understand if you're working with a company that provides exclusivity, they're typically going to be more expensive because they've limited their inventory. So know that that goes hand in hand. Most people don't want to know they're not competing with their own marketing company. If we get a CFO on the line to talk about a qualified plan and they are very receptive, we obviously know that. We could certainly call that same person back 2-3 weeks later and acquire an appointment for somebody else. Our clients want to know we don't do that. But just understand what is the exclusivity nature of the appointments that you're getting. If you have a story, an approach, something you feel is incredibly unique, will the firm offer you a mutual NDA? Will they sign an NDA so you feel comfortable that what the company is doing on your behalf is solely for you? We all know what a non-exclusive experience looks like. Somebody goes online, they want to check in auto insurance or whatever the case may be. That lead gets sold 10 to 20 times instantly. It comes down to who calls first and how quickly the person that put in the information online, if that's the method they use, just stops answering the call. So that's the other end of the stick if you don't have exclusivity, and there are certainly various natures in between. 6, what information do you know prior to an appointment? And this also goes back to where we talk about how customizable something is. If you've got a very specific question or a very specific piece of information you want to know, ask the company. Maybe it's not standard, but maybe they can work with you to find it out. Maybe they'll also push back and say, we can ask it, but it's going to be detrimental to the appointment. So it's a conversation to have if you want. But what are the basics? Who, contact information, date, time, and place of the engagement. I call it the PT way. We use business intelligence as our terminology here. But whenever we set an appointment, we ask anywhere from about 8 to 12 qualifying questions of the prospect. We're trying to get more information that you cannot get through a public source so you can better prepare. So in our business owner calls, that's pieces like company structure, sales volume, business partners ages, do they have a buy-sell, and what kind of buy-sell do they have? Those are some of the types of things we ask. On qualified plans, assets, match, participants, advisor, provider. Health and welfare, how many are eligible, how many participate, who's the broker provider, LOS is just length of service. So how long has the broker been in play? There are detailed questions that really become vital though as you go, and you want to make sure if you're paying top dollar that you're getting, and that's something along the lines of, is there anything to prevent you from vacating the current relationship? So we ask for our health and welfare qualified plan call and our commercial P&C call, who's the broker? Tell us about the relationship. And is there any reason you won't leave it? And we let the prospect know, hey, it's okay if you won't. We're not passing judgment. But the entire point of Joe coming out to me is he'd like an opportunity to earn your business over time. This is how it begins. Maybe we get there, maybe we don't. But if that opportunity doesn't exist, we don't want to take your time or hours just to kick tires. So those are the types of questions that lead to better quality. They don't sniff out everything, but they sniff out those relationships that you're just not going to break through on. Number 7, what is the expected ROI? And this gets a little tricky when it comes to ROI. So first thing to understand is, what is the length of your commitment to the campaign? So whatever you're doing, are you committed for 12 months, 6 months, month to month? What are you doing? And there's contractual commitments and there's marketing commitments. So contractual commitments is just that. What am I signing on the dotted line for? Marketing commitments are different. And this gets into a little bit of what we'll talk about more in a minute with the type of sale that you're making, but not much happens in 60, 90, 120 days. Appointments happen, activity happens, but to get to a program that you can really evaluate, you need time. You need 12 months plus. So there's the commitment you have on paper, but there's also the commitment you make internally in your business model. Ask the question around the type of appointment and what is the typical sales cycle. Ask them what they see and hear, and then use your own intuitive nature. Think about a life insurance sale. If you sell a $300,000 term life policy for $12 a month to a 22-year-old, it's a pretty quick event. It's not very complicated. If you sell a $2 million policy, permanent insurance, $50,000 annual premium to a 60-year-old, it's complicated. Not just with underwriting, but it's complicated getting somebody there to say, yes, I want to do that. So know the typical sales cycle of what you're getting put in front of, and understand what that means as far as how long you're going to have to write out checks before revenue starts coming back. Get into what is the size of a typical sale. Just gave the example on life insurance. It really depends on what you're looking at, but understand the size that's associated with it, because obviously that then relates to also what that revenue coming back is going to look like. Now, most cold calling campaigns have a closing ratio between 15 and 20%, frankly. We get up around 25% in the commercial P&C space. If you get numbers that are much higher than that, they really should make you pause. Most of our clients are used to, again, Joe referred Sue, and Sue said, I got to work with you. And if those close at 70, 80%, and you're used to that, there's some acclimation here. But work around that 15 to 20% number. Understand how long it'll take the ROI to turn. And then lastly, trust your gut. You know, does it pass the smell test on what they're sharing as a typical ROI and how long it takes for that ROI to come back in. And then you need to evaluate things like, is the revenue coming in from that? Is it renewable every year? Is it a one-time shot with a little bit of trail? Can I get more wallet share? So if I sell the qualified plan, do I have a division that does health and welfare? Or if I sell the qualified plan, do I do personal business with the people inside of the plan? If I sell the commercial P&C, can I pick up the health and welfare? Wallet share, we don't really track. We focus on those initial sales, but there's a lot of other activity that can go on that can really expand your ROI and ability to feel really good about this type of campaign and what it's doing for you. So what's next? Just as a refresher, what we do at PT in that B2B space, qualified plans, health and welfare, business owner calls. Executive comp is the one that usually comes up. What that conversation is a 162 bonus plan type dialogue, and business succession, which is pretty straightforward, and commercial P&C. We'd always love to have a conversation. I'm happy to even have a conversation. If you're in a conversation on the side with somebody else trying to figure something out and you want some input and you want some advice, I'm happy to do that. Don't shy away from asking me. Call me, email me, send me a note back from when I send you out the replay from this session if you want to have more of a conversation. Happy to do it. Lastly, if you haven't been part of these in the past, these are on a monthly basis, and they're focused more on the overall side of appointment setting and the things to look at and do. Next month, we're going to get into what makes a compelling story. So the prospects, the people you want to target, they get pitched, and they get pitched a lot. And it's not just on the phone. It's in person. It's on social media. It's virtually. They are constantly having people try to get to them. That's why you're trying to get to them. By the way, those are also your clients. So remember, your clients are constantly being pitched. The question is, what kind of pitch stands out? What kind of pitch has somebody walking away saying, well, that was interesting. That was useful to me. I'll keep that person in mind, versus a pitch that's numbing. And what are the things and the criteria that help you develop a good pitch? Whether a company like PT here, we're doing that pitch for you, or whether it's something you're doing face-to-face. A lot of different things go into it, but that's going to be our focus for next month. So thanks again for joining us. Like I said, we like to stay to the tight timeline. Look for the replay coming out. And if you have any questions following the time, call me, email me. Love to have a conversation. Thanks again very much for the time. We'll see you next month. Take care now. Bye-bye.